to this informational webinar about Lyme. We are very excited to see all of you here this evening. So what is Lyme? Lyme stands for Leaders Investigating Mathematics Evidence. And this is a brand new project that we just found out about 3 weeks ago. And it's going to be funded by the Office of Special Education Programs for the next 5 years. And the goal is to create the next generation of researchers who will become leaders in special education. And we expect those leaders to be focused in the area of mathematics and outcomes for students with disability or students who are at risk of disability. And so Lyme is going to be hosted by 3 universities, the University of Texas at Austin, Southern Methodist University, and the University of Missouri. And it will provide full funding for a PhD program for 4 years. Now, a few things before we get started in getting into the details. Lyme is based at each university, so it's not an online program. So you would be asked to take coursework in Austin, Texas at the University of Texas, in Dallas, Texas at Southern Methodist University, or in Columbia, Missouri at the University of Missouri. And because Lyme is funded by the U.S. Department of Education and the Office of Special Education Programs, Lyme is only open to U.S. citizens. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the faculty that will be involved with Lyme. So at the University of Texas at Austin, I will be involved with Lyme. My name is Sarah Powell, and things that I'm really interested in terms of research, I'm really interested in what math instruction looks like for students who experience learning difficulty. I love to talk about problem solving and research word problem solving, and I also really enjoy talking about database decision making. And at the University of Texas, I will be joined by Dr. Chris Dobler. He is really interested in learning difficulties, especially related to STEM, so both in mathematics and science. He does a lot of work around classroom engagement, and he's really interested in early math intervention. So think grades K through 2. I'll turn it over here to Erica, who will tell us a little bit about the faculty at the University of Missouri.
Yeah, thank you so much. So nice to see everybody on the call at the University of Missouri. My focus is around database decision making and assessment in the area of mathematics. So I like to create and administer and teach teachers about how to use assessment and intervention in database decision making. I'm joined by my 2 colleagues, Dr. Jessica Rodriguez, Dr. Delinda Van Garderen. Jessica's main interest is in the area of fractions, and Delinda has specific interests in learning difficulties in both math and science. She's NIH and NSF funded right now, and also Universal Design for Learning. So if your home base was at the University of Missouri, you would be working with the 3 of us.
Hello, everybody. My name is Leanne Ketterlin-Geller, and I'm a professor in the Department of Education Policy and Leadership at Southern Methodist University. We are in Dallas, Texas. So if you were interested in the work that we're doing, these 3 faculty, myself included, we will be in Dallas. So much of the work that I do in mathematics education is really focused on assessment and assessment design. I work mostly in the areas or the age ranges of kindergarten through grade 8 and looking at accessibility of assessments. I've spent a good amount of time thinking about issues of universal design as it applies to assessment, how we apply and administer accommodations, how we interpret assessment data, how we work with teachers to interpret and use assessment data, and certainly that relates to within a multi-tiered system of support as well as database individualization. So if you're interested in assessment as it relates to mathematics and supporting students with disabilities or difficulties in mathematics, I would love to learn more about your interest and talk more about you. I am joined by 2 other colleagues at SMU. Annie Wilhelm is in the Department of Teaching and Learning. She focuses in mathematics education and mathematics instruction. She also has a very strong passion for preparing educators. She is a former high school teacher as well, so high school math teacher. So if you are interested in secondary, she's a great colleague and mentor. And then Dr. Amy Gillespie Rouse, who is also in the Department of Teaching and Learning and has has an emphasis in special education as it relates to integration of writing in content areas, specifically STEM content areas. So she's done a lot of work in mathematics and science and how we integrate and support students with disabilities in writing in those content areas. So that's a little bit about our program.
So with the aim of Lyme, when we wrote this grant, our whole goal was to prepare the next generation of experts or researchers who will work in the field of special education with a focus on math. Now, that focus on math can be very widely interpreted. You might want to focus on math assessment in kindergarten. You might want to focus on middle school math database decision making. You might want to focus on high school math and how to support students with disabilities in high school. And you might want to focus on fractions or word problem solving or counting and comparison. There's lots of different things that you can focus on in math. And it's really up to you where you want to focus. But the whole idea is that we will be trying to prepare people who will go out into the field and become the next generation of math researchers, and join Erica and Leanne and myself in that effort. During your time with Lyme, you will learn a lot about research and a lot about scholarly writing. You will also learn about grant writing and statistical analysis, so that when you leave your institution and after you finish the Lyme program, we're really trying to prepare most people to go into higher education so that you will take tenure track positions and become professors and write your own grants and receive your own funding and do school-based research in math. But we also know that some of our Lyme scholars may go to work in research institutes, or maybe they'll work in school districts or clinical settings or in federal agencies. Now, when we put the Lyme program together and submitted this grant to the Office of Special Education Programs, we put together this framework. So on the left-hand side, we see that your institution of higher ed, or your IHE, you'll do a lot of coursework and gain experiences at your university. But then you will also participate in Lyme. We're going to talk in a minute or two about Lyme Lights and Lyme Times and Lyme projects, and those will be done across the 3 universities. So you work within your university to do all the coursework at the university, but then the Lyme program will allow you to work across universities in a really interesting way. And both of those things, your university experiences and your Lyme experiences, will help you learn more about what we call academy knowledge. So what does it mean to be a faculty member? It'll help you with your special education knowledge related to assessment and instruction. And it also will improve your math content and pedagogical knowledge, so that, as you can see here at the bottom, we create a group of really high quality leaders who will work at institutions of higher ed, and they will be focused on math for children with disabilities. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over here to Erica, who's going to tell you a little bit about a typical PhD program with Lyme.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, so while each PhD program has just slightly different requirements, generally the PhD program will include a 4-year sequence of courses and experiences and Lyme activities that will prepare you, as Sarah mentioned, to be a faculty member at an institution where you can do research and do teaching. And so in year 1, you'll have, and in year 2, those 2 years, you'll have more coursework than in years 3 and 4. You'll continue to have some Lyme activities like working together with the other scholars across the cohorts, starting to hone in on your research interests. We'll also have you each of those years participating in school-based research. So you'll leave with a broad range of experiences that will position you to get a really great position at a university as a faculty member. In years 3 and 4, we finish with the more typical coursework and move into more of your own individual research, move into your initial exams, like your qualifying exams. You'll start to put together your dissertation proposal and really start to build your own independent research initiative. And then finally, in year 4, the goal would be to be finishing up, working on your dissertation research, to be writing up your dissertation and to defend that, and also to be applying for positions and interviewing for those positions in higher ed. Again, the activities that we have planned for you will help lead you to be successful in a position in higher ed. And all of us have lots of experience in advising and mentoring students to be in those positions. In fact, we have a really good track record across the three of us of having our students go on to, research intensive positions. We can go to the next one. So if you have your phone out and you want to take a quick scan of these, this is just the different programs, PhD programs at each of the institutions. And you can also find this online. Like if you wanted mine, you could just Google Mizzou education and PhD program, and it would also take you to the same place. At each university, as I mentioned before, coursework would take typically 2 to 2.5 years. So there might be things like statistics classes, some initial research classes, other classes in pedagogy, might be classes on the professoriate, like learning more about teaching at a college or university setting, along with those courses and the research courses that I mentioned. You'll be asked to do some teaching. Usually that's kind of a hierarchy of teaching experiences, from guest lectures to being a teaching assistant to co-teaching and even leading a class. I noticed from the chat that a lot of you have already been teachers, and so this will be a great opportunity for you to continue to work with adult learners. In each of our settings, we also have some thesis requirements, where you have some initial qualifying or comprehensive exams that you take, maybe the first or second year of your program, and then move on to dissertation requirements. Again, the LIME activities are what kind of bind all of us together as part of LIME. At each of our institutions, you'll have just slightly different requirements, but I think you would find that overall, when you're communicating with other LIME scholars at other institutions, you're all going to be doing fairly similar coursework, might just be slightly different titles on that. So let me stop there real quick. And before I turn it back over to Sarah and Leanne, any questions so far about that 4-year sequence and the coursework piece of it?
So I will, now that we've talked a little bit about what's happening uniquely at each university through the university program requirements, I'm going to talk about what kind of binds us together. So we know that LIME stands for Leaders Investigating Mathematics Evidence. And so we've identified and designed these 3 types of activities. I'm going to go through each one of those that really will be opportunities to coalesce as a cohort across the different organizations, the different universities. So even though there might be similar like statistics classes or research design classes, those will be unique to your individual experience, but we want to make sure that we're building and situating all of that knowledge within mathematics evidence and to prepare and support you in your future goals. So LIME Lights, these are online modules that will be completed by each person in the cohort. And these happen each semester and then also during the summer. And these cover topics such as like mathematics and special education, faculty development, research design as it's specific to mathematics education and mathematics evidence in special education, grant writing. Not all of our programs offer grant writing, so we want to make sure that there's experiences and opportunities to develop grant writing for specific competitions that you might be writing for as a faculty member with expertise in mathematics and special education, language and mathematics, a variety of different topics. So as you can see, if we're doing this for 3 years, or for 3 per year for the 4 years, there will be 12 of these that will be completed by everyone in the cohort. Then we also have Lime Time, and this is in-person activities where you'll really get to meet all of the other scholars at the different institutions and have time together to build a national network of, once you move into your careers, you'll really have a spread of other people, 11 other people, and besides yourself, who are interested in very similar topics. So these will be at our institutions. So they'll be at the University of Texas at Austin. So if you happen to be based there, you won't be traveling that time. They'll be at SMU in Dallas, Texas, at Missouri. But then we've also built in some of these Lime times that are around national conferences, so that as we're going to the OSEP Project Directors Conference, you're meeting with your colleagues, you're meeting with us, we're having similar experiences, and we're gaining more knowledge together as a group. There'll also be other conferences, such as the Council for Exceptional Children Conference, and then other experiences together. And then lastly are the Lime projects and experiences. And so these are intended to be cross-university opportunities to where you'll engage with your cohort members together. This could be summer research experience, where we're hoping that people will travel to different universities to have in-person experiences with those research teams. It's also peer reviewing for journals that would potentially happen together in smaller groups, or pair peer reviewing, professional learning opportunities where maybe there's seminars that people are engaged in, and then also some of the more traditional academic experiences and opportunities, like writing proposals for conferences, presenting those in at national conferences, writing publications that will make it into the journals. And then also I just wanted to kind of connect with some of the current work that we have. And that's in a project that's funded that Erica, Sarah, and I are currently working on, that's funded by the Office of Special Education Programs. And we have a cohort of cross-site doctoral students who really kind of inspired us in some ways of putting some of these activities together. They present together, they write together, they've created a type of a network already. So we're excited to bring that with this project, and then also all centered around mathematics and special education.
In terms of Lime funding, so you would receive full tuition at the university, at one of the 3 universities, and that also comes with full health insurance coverage for you during the 4 years that you are here. And then you receive on top of the tuition reimbursement, a $35,000 stipend per year. And then you would also receive, this is not in cash, but you would get $7,500 in research funds. So you would spend those maybe going out to schools and observing teachers. Maybe you spend research funds going to another university and spending a week with them in the summer, learning how they do research. You would receive up to $9,000 in conference reimbursement. So going to different conferences across the United States and perhaps internationally to learn from other researchers and other educators of what are they doing in math and math research. And then you would also be eligible for $2,000 for technology. So to buy a new laptop or new computer, and maybe you want to do a printer and buy some software. So that would also be available to you as well. So this sounds really awesome. We're very excited about this program. And it is really awesome, but I want to say a few things. So first, a PhD program is a tremendous amount of work. It is really a full-time job for the 4-year span. During that time, people move to a different city to be close to the university where they attend. And you typically will spend about 20 plus hours a week doing your coursework. And you'll also spend 20 hours a week in doing school-based research. So you can see that it is a full-time job. You really have to be motivated to conduct research once you finish this program. The U.S. Department of Education is funding us to fund you so that you all become the next generation of researchers focused on math. There's not enough of us right now, and we made the case for that in this grant proposal. And they said, yeah, Sarah, Erica, and Leanne, we need more math researchers like yourself. And so they are funding Lyme so that you go out for the next 10 or 20 or maybe even 30 years and be the faculty at universities who are teaching pre-service teachers about how to teach math and special ed. You are conducting school-based research and publishing that research so that we know much more about what are the best practices related to mathematics in the area of special education. I will say that there is a payback clause. We want to be really obvious with this up front. If you decide to do the Lyme PhD program and then you want to go and open your own antique store, the university or the US Department of Ed would not consider that you're still working in education. And so there is a payback clause. This usually is never applied because basically you just have to go do something in education, whether you're working at a college or a university, maybe you're working with a state Department of Education or a school district, or there's lots of different ways that you can work in education. But we will, like, if you do want to go down the Lyme pathway with us, we would make it very clear that you do have this payback clause, that you would have to pay back the stipend you received if you don't pursue something in education, I think for at least 4 years after you finish your PhD. And I also want to say that there's a few things that you do a lot of in a PhD program. One is write. So you should have some type of interest in writing to some extent. Academic writing is a learned skill. So if you don't feel that you're a strong writer, that's okay. But if you do not like writing, a PhD program may not be for you. And you also have to like statistics to some extent. And we will say, like, you don't have to be an expert in statistics. I know before I started my PhD program, I had never, ever taken a statistics class, but you have to be willing to practice and learn and, at least take probably 3 or 4 statistics classes during your university coursework. The first thing that you really want to do is reflect. What are you interested in? And I think also, why would you want to do a PhD program? Do you have a general interest in STEM? Is it math instruction or math intervention? Is it math assessment? Is there specific math content? I really want to learn a lot more about rational numbers or algebra or word problem solving. Are you interested in the literacy related to mathematics, or are you related to database decision making? And there are other things to add to this list. That is not an exclusive list. So really reflect and spend a little bit of time figuring out why you would want to do this and what you'd be interested in. And then reach out. Reach out to the Lyme faculty who do research that aligns with your interest area. Please do not reach out to all 8 Lyme faculty just to think like, oh, if I talk to all 8, I have a better chance of being a Lyme scholar. That is not true. The most important thing is finding a match between you, who we would consider the mentee, and a mentor. So the mentors at University of Texas at Austin would be me, Sarah, and Chris Dobler. At Missouri, it would be Erica Lemke, Delinda Van Garderen, or Jessica Rodriguez. And at SMU, it would be Leanne Ketterling-Geller, Annie Wilhelm, or Amy Gillespie Routes. You would work with one of those people primarily. So look at all the different faculty, read their bios, look at their websites, follow them on social media. Like, who's interested in what you are interested in? Because we would say that a mentor-mentee relationship is really essential for a happy and successful PhD program. And then one thing we would like to say is that once you choose a Lyme mentor, you have to continue to work with that Lyme mentor. You may be able to switch to another Lyme mentor, but you can't switch to a faculty member who's not associated with Lyme. At that point, Lyme would cease paying for your tuition and paying your salary, because then at that point, you wouldn't be in the Lyme program. And so this choice of who would you like to work with and learn from is going to be a really important thing you need to reflect upon, and it's not going to come to you overnight. We think that this is probably something you need to think about for the next several weeks or even a few months. And then the first thing you'll have to do is to apply. So at the University of Texas at Austin and SMU in Dallas, our application deadlines are coming up. They are December 1st. There's a little bit of wiggle room there, but you would have to apply by early December. And then the University of Missouri has an application deadline of January 15th. You have to apply to the university that you are interested in. You don't apply to me or Leanne or Erica. You apply through the university portals. And then the university would make a decision as to whether you would gain application to the program. And then once you gain admissions to the program at one of the 3 universities, then you would be considered as for a Lyme Scholar position. And so if you are interested in, these are the QR codes to follow to the admission sites for each of the universities. You're able to follow those. And if you do have any specific questions, our Lyme coordinator, Lee Tran, she's here tonight, but please reach out to her. This is her email, and she can answer a lot of the specific questions that you have. So I will pause there and go to the chat because I see we have some questions coming in. So Iris says, is it possible to get a copy of this presentation? Yes, Iris, we will share this. We're also recording this session, and tomorrow on social media, I'll post the session so you can watch this again if you want to and want to gain more questions. Rebecca asks, would it help? Would we help connect you to possible mentors? We can, Rebecca, but I think some of this has to come from you. So there's 8 Lyme faculty. I would spend time looking at the profiles for those 8 Lyme faculty. You might read about Chris Dobler. He has a program funded by the National Science Foundation that looks at science and math. And you might be like, wow, that's really interesting. I would like to spend some of my time in a PhD program focused on that. You might read about Erica Lemke and say, oh, wow, database decision making. I want to work on that because what the people list on their faculty profile is probably the school-based research that they'll have going on for the next 4 or 5 years. And so you want to connect with a mentor that has interests that align similarly to you. They don't have to be exact, but look at the projects that each of us have going on, because those would be the things that you would be doing with us at our different universities.
We'd encourage you also to pass this information along if you know of others who might be interested. Looks like some of you are teachers, and so feel free to pass this information along to others who you think might be interested.